On today's episode of Dropping Floats, it's going to have really nothing to do with fishing. Has something to do with the outdoors, but nothing to do with fishing. About 2 weeks ago, I was randomly going through Facebook Marketplace, and I was hunting around, looking at, as a hobby, I kind of keep an eye on the market for Ram 1500s, and always told myself someday I'm gonna buy a new truck, but I'm always too cheap to pay those ridiculous prices that the manufacturers are charging. But nonetheless, I like to look, like many people, I'm sure. And while I was looking one day at Rams and just random stuff on Facebook Marketplace, I'm sure many of you get lost in the marketplace looking at random stuff. I came across this pickup, right? And I was just like, I'm looking at this pickup and I'm like, man, that pickup really looks like the truck that I had in high school. But that was a little over 20 years ago. So it's like, there's no way that's my truck, right? No way, it's 20 years ago. It was a pretty unique truck, I'm sure, it got in a wreck and got destroyed, like a lot of vehicles do. And I got to looking, and I was just like, man, that looks a lot like my old pickup. So I got looking at like the finer details that I knew about it that I did 20 years ago. The first little detail I knew to look for was back when I was in high school, I took out the carpet and put bed liner and the floorboards like this. The other little detail I looked for back in high school, I remembered installing fog lights on my truck and putting a little red switch in on the dash to turn them on and off, right? Like every other person does. That little red switch was like this. So I'm looking at this ad thinking, holy shit, it's got the red switch, it's got the Rhino Line floorboards like I did in high school, and it has the same lift that I had on it, and then the wheels, I put those on that truck 20 years ago. But the real nail in the coffin was two little holes that I drilled. So at this point, I've seen the red switch. I've seen the floorboards that are Rhino lined. I'm like, coincidence. A lot of people do that. That's common, right? It was a generic red switch, probably got it at Weimar. A lot of high school kids rip the carpet out of their trucks and put Rhino in, right? It's a pretty common thing, but you see those little screw holes right there? I drilled those in this truck 20 years ago when I had it in high school. I installed a CB mount, and I had to drill those right there to get them out, because like every redneck kid in high school had to have a CB on their truck, right? Never used the dang thing, but you had to have one to look cool and have the big whips. At least I went to a kind of a redneck school, so maybe that wasn't how your school was. You're probably figuring it out. 2 weeks ago, I was looking at Facebook Marketplace and I found the exact truck that I had 20 years ago in high school, which is pretty unreal. Not a truck like it. No, not that. But the exact truck. With the exact wheels. With the same lift. Had the holes from the CB that I installed. The carpet missing, and Rhino line. So it's the exact truck. I traded it in when I was going to college. And I traded it to a dealership, so the license plate didn't match, because they pull the plates to clear the title. And so here it is, my high school truck that I bought back About 2.5 weeks ago. Doesn't look like much now. You know, it definitely went through a couple of years of a couple Neanderthals owning it, where they just kind of beat the daylights out of it, but it survived. It's still a solid. It's got a little uglier now, that's for sure. And that really doesn't bother me because it's going to be kind of my river truck, kind of back road truck. So crappy paint is really not that important, you know. And but it is my truck from 20 years ago, and it was only 2 hours away from where I live in Maupin. It was in Bend, so it's stayed in Oregon its entire life, which is pretty dang cool. You know, it's already been a money pit. I had to put a clutch in it 2 weeks after I got it. The clutch went out. Pretty typical. You can definitely tell it's been abused. Here's the other side. You know, I added the shell to it. It had a shell on it, kind of a beat up white one. I had this nice gray one already off my newer truck that I have. And so I pulled the white one off, put this gray one on it. And its permanent home is going to be on this truck. It's just too handy as an outdoor truck not to have a canopy on it. So yeah, it's a 1993 Dodge Dakota Sport Short V6 5-speed manual, regular cab, and the damn thing is alive and kicking. You know, it's got some bumps and bruises, but it's the character that I'm probably not going to change a lot of. You know, I'll make sure it's mechanically, you know, where it needs to be to go out in the backwoods with. But I like the patina. I like the faded paint. I like the scratches, the clear coat peeling. You know, I like all that. You know, it gives it character. It is telling a story. The adventures I had in this truck were pretty awesome. Did a lot of exploring in it. And it was the one that I always wish I hadn't gotten rid of. And I had looked from time to time trying to find it, and it was like, oh, it's a lost cause. And then it was like the universe spoke. Wasn't even looking for Dodge Dakotas. I was looking at Dodges, but not Dodge Dakotas. And sure as shit, there it was. Still alive and kicking. Super stoked about having it back. You know, I'm gonna turn it into my daily driver around Maupin. That's the best way to find weak links, is just to start driving it. You know, I don't think it had been on the road for a while. The tags were expired by a couple years. So that's kind of an indicator that it wasn't on the road a lot, you know, and it's definitely got some, you know, stuff I'll have to straighten out, but I'm fairly mechanical, so I'm not terribly concerned about it. And look for more videos of this old beater in it. You know, it's going to be the Maupin River rig for sure. So if you see an old beat up green Dodge Dakota with a gray canopy on it, you know, swing by and say hi. You know, I've officially tagged it, and it's going to be mine. This is how I've tagged it. Right there. I put my store logo on it up there, the hardware store in Maupin. And then I've got the spawned out brown trout on the green truck. And then I've got the regular brown trout on my gray truck. So if you're ever in Maupin and you're fishing down the river, and you've seen my channel, and you see a truck with a Dakota with a brown trout sticker on it, that's me. Swing by, come down and say hi. I'd love to talk to you about fishing or whatever, off-roading. And now that I have this old truck back, you know, I have my nephew has kind of bugged a little bit about these kind of back road trails he wants to do. They're called the Oregon BDR trails. You know, before I had a 4-wheel drive truck, but it didn't have the greatest clearance, and it wasn't really something you'd go out on back roads and beat up. It's kind of like an old grandpa truck, you know, if you see it. So what you can expect from the channel going forward is definitely you're going to see some Oregon back, Oregon BDR trails. You're definitely going to see some of that. You know, some of these backcountry trails do get in up and way into the mountains where there's high mountain creeks and streams and little lakes. So you can definitely expect to see footage of that. You know, this old beater is really going to open up a lot of possibilities of different areas I wasn't able to get to before. Now I've got a rig that's perfectly suited for it. You know, it'll take some love, some TLC to get it mechanically, you know, where I feel comfortable taking it, you know, hours out into the backcountry. But I don't think it's going to take a ton amount of work. You know, like I said, the clutch went out like 2 weeks after I bought it, and that's a big thing. It's fixed, ready to go, professionally done. So there's no worries there. It's been inspected underneath. They said the underneath the truck is in better shape than the outside of the truck, which is awesome. We're not saying much because the outside of the truck is kind of beat up, but yeah, so who knows. But in 2024, you can definitely look forward to some Oregon BDR trail videos. I want to get down on the Williamson, down near Klamath Falls this year, and go after some brown trout. We're definitely gonna go out to the John Day and do a overnighter bass fishing this summer. The bass fishing on the John Day is flipping probably the best in Oregon. So if you're a bass fisherman, you know, I mainly target trout and steelhead, but if you're a bass fisherman and you've never fished the John Day and you're in Oregon, you need to make that trip out to the John Day and bass fish. It's not uncommon for groups to catch, you know, 100 bass in an overnight trip. So at peak season, you know, there's a little bit of timing involved, you know, because they go dormant this time of year when it gets cold, and they don't, you know, they get going a little late in the spring. But it's easy. Research it, Google it. You can find out when the prime time is to go on the John Day for bass fishing, you know. So yeah, dropping floats is definitely, we're gonna go do some center pinning for bass. I actually have not done that. I've caught a bass on a center pin, clowning around on the Willamette, but I've never actually went out purposely trying to target them with the center pin. So we'll see. You know, I'm expecting it's going to work very well. But the big one is the Williamson. Then we're going to go out to the Minam and stay at the state campground and in the town of Minam, which it's pretty much one little business as all is to this town. It's a little fly shop / raft shop. And they sell some beer and have a food cart there. It's pretty awesome. It's way out other side of Elgin, Oregon. It's called the Minam Store. They have a website. Look it up. But we're gonna go out there. We're gonna fish the Wallowa again. I hope to find some access on the Minam. And then I also want to get to Troy and fish the Grand Ronde. It's kind of the same general area out there. And I'll do videos of all those. You know, so we're gonna try to branch out. We're still gonna stay in Oregon, but we're going to stay east. You know, we don't really traipse over to the west side very often, mainly because I'm kind of antisocial and there's way too many fishermen over there. It's like today's prime example. I went out, fished for like an hour, you know, caught a couple, you know, went picked up, but I was the only person where I was at. And if that was the valley, probably not going to be the case. So that's what you can expect in 2024. You know, it's going to be awesome. I found my truck in 2024. Well, technically it was 2023 still, but the very tail end of 2023. And so you can look forward to many backcountry videos with that in the old beater. And I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. You know, maybe Mean Green or Old and Busted. I don't know. I'll gotta get a name. Maybe you have a name. But we are trying to get to 100 subs this month. You know, we're really close. I think last I looked, we're at 88 or 89, you know, so we've got rest of January. If you like any of these videos, or shit, even if you don't like them, still subscribe. Helps out, you know, as we try to grow the channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 in a year so we can get monetized. That is our main goal for 2024, is try to monetize our channel. And like I said, I'm a one-man show, so I do literally everything. I do the video, I do the fishing, I do all the research of where I'm gonna go, that whole thing, I do it myself. Not like some guys where they have a whole production team. It's me, with one GoPro, and I do it all. So, yeah. And I also invite you to swing by the store if you're coming from Maupin and you're a fisherman. You know, swing by the store, say hi. You know, chances are I'm gonna be there. Or maybe you've never fished the Lower D you want some guidance, definitely come in to the store. I'll help you out best I can, you know, kind of give you some pointers on where to go, what to use, all that kind of good stuff. But don't be intimidated by the lower to chute. Some people kind of tend to be. It's a big river, heavy current, difficult wading, but you know, a few pointers and you'll be all ready to go and catching fish in no time. So please like and subscribe, and we'll see you later on down the interweb.